Hi, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Inside the Cancer Center at Brown University. I'm Sahar Shahamadar, and I will be moderating the panel tonight. I'm really excited to hear from our esteemed panelists on how Brown is positioned to make deep, meaningful impact on cancer research and patient care in Rhode Island and beyond. Before we start, a few housekeeping items. Please use the Q&A function along the bottom of your screen to ask any questions. If we're unable to get to your question, we will follow up after the event with an email. I came to Brown as an undergraduate student in 2009 through the program in liberal medical education, and I'm currently pursuing an MD PhD focused on computational approaches in cancer genomics. I have been fortunate to be part of the Brown community throughout my academic career, and even more fortunate to learn from and work with our panelists. Today, we will be discussing the Cancer Center at Brown, whose mission is to provide patients with the best cancer care available today, while also aiming to advance treatment through scientific research and clinical trials. Our first speaker is Dean Jack Elias. Dean Elias, MD, is the Senior Vice President for Health Affairs, Dean of Medicine and Biological Sciences, and the Frank L. Day Professor of Biology at the Warren Alpert Medical School. In his over 30-year career as an immunobiologist, Dean Elias has trained scores of researchers, published more than 230 peer-reviewed research papers, and cared for numerous patients with a wide variety of lung ailments and immune and allergic disorders. Please welcome Dean Elias.
Thank you, Sahar. It is really a pleasure to be with everybody tonight. I want to welcome you to this webinar, and I want to welcome you to the Inside the Cancer Center at Brown. For those of you who don't know me, I am the Dean of Biology and Medicine and Senior Vice President for Health Affairs, but that's not the major role of what I do. The major role of what I do is I'm here to help the faculty achieve greatness and to help the students achieve greatness. And you'll hopefully by the end of the evening have a better understanding of how that's done in relationship to cancer. Before I go any further, I want to just thank a few people. I want to thank Kaylee Burns, the Assistant Dean for Biomed Advancement, and her team. They put this program together and they manage the logistics of it. They simply tell me when to show up, when to smile, and we go from there. And so thank you, Kaylee and Kayla and the whole team. I am really honored and want to thank Dr. Sheldon Holder, Dr. Rishi Lula, and Sahar Shahamadar, who, as you can see, is one of our current MD PhD students. It is really exciting for me to be watching a panel which has the present and the future for cancer at Brown on the same panel. And so thank you all for joining us today and helping move this forward. I also want to thank Wafik El-Diri. You'll hear more about Dr. El-Diri's career and his accomplishments going forward. But without his completely amazing work ethic and his willingness to just lower his head and move forward, we would not be where we are today with the Cancer Center at Brown. As I was thinking about what I wanted to say and how I wanted to introduce this to everybody who's online with us tonight, I sort of flashed back to various parts of my career. And I must say that in my time before coming to Brown, one of the most interesting and exciting things that I experienced was the establishment of a new cancer center in New Haven at Yale University. It was the Smilow Cancer Hospital. And by establishing the Smilow Cancer Hospital, the entire tone, the entire focus of the campus at Yale changed. It made a huge difference for the medical school. It made a huge difference for the hospital. And it made a huge difference for patient care in Connecticut. When I got to Brown, I realized that we could do the same thing here. And in fact, it was begging to be done. Then the question was, who do we have who can lead this? One day, a Federal Express truck pulled up in front of my office. A guy with a hand cart jumped out. And he brought a CV to me that he had to use a hand cart to bring into my office. That was Wafiq El-Diri's CV. I knew right then and there that I had the person that I needed to get this done if I could somehow convince him to come to Providence. And I am thrilled to tell you that he is here and he has really done an amazing job. Not only will you hear about the Cancer Center at Brown, you're going to hear that it is a research endeavor, but you're also going to hear that it is changing how we diagnose, treat, and prevent cancer in patients in Rhode Island. When we wanted to focus on cancer, I can tell you that the first thing we did was we said, okay, let's do what Brown does best. Let's focus on research. And we recruited Dr. El-Diri to form a joint program in cancer biology with the Lifespan Health System. That worked tremendously well. And then with the support of Jake Curtis, the chair of pathology, and others, in May 2020, under Dr. El-Diri's leadership, that program morphed into the Cancer Center at Brown. What is very clear, though, is that that's only part of the story. The dream, the goal is for an NCI designated cancer center. And that is really something that I'm really looking forward to as we go forward. For those of you who may not know the difference between a cancer center and an NCI designated cancer center, the NCI designated cancer centers are required to meet rigorous standards for transdisciplinary state-of-the-art research. And they focus on developing new and better approaches to preventing, diagnosing, and treating cancer. It's not a project for the faint of heart. It is a big undertaking to establish an NCI designated cancer center. It frequently takes several years, but when you're successful at the end, you've established yourself in the top tier of cancer research and the top tier of cancer care nationally. It is this shared vision for biomedical research that focuses on the latest knowledge of diseases and the development of new therapies that's going to allow us to give Rhode Islanders access to cutting edge cancer therapy without leaving the state. And to put it simply, the Cancer Center at Brown is a game changer for how we provide cancer care in Rhode Island and Southern New England. Now, we have a full agenda tonight, and frankly, I'm the least important part of it. I'm going to wrap this up and hand it back to Sahar. Let me just leave you with a few points. One is that I am thrilled to be in the position where we have the ability and the opportunity to impact society in a positive way through this cancer center. And I hope you share that excitement when this session is done. I also need to tell you that excitement alone doesn't build the kind of world-class program that we want to have here. And we'd be very excited if you would join us in that endeavor. For those of you who've already made donations, thank you very much. For those of you who might in the future and are here to learn more about it, again, thank you for joining us tonight. And just simply thank you for being part of our community. I hope you enjoy the webinar, and I hope you appreciate the tremendous excellence that is being displayed for you in Dr. El-Diri, Dr. Lula, Dr. Holder, and future Dr., soon to be Dr. Shahamadar. So thank you all very much. Enjoy the evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean Elias. I would now like to welcome Dr. Wafiq El-Diri. Dr. El-Diri is the Menkoff Family University Professor of Medical Science, the Associate Dean for Oncological Sciences, and the Director of the Cancer Center at Brown University. His research is focused on mechanisms of therapy resistance with major efforts in drug discovery and development. Welcome, Dr. El-Diri.
Thank you, Sahar and Dean Elias, for your comments. It's great to be here with you all to share some of our exciting progress and vision for cancer research and cancer care in Rhode Island. I only wish we could be together in person at this time, And I would invite you to reach out when you're in the area, as we would love to meet and share more about what's happening. As Sahar mentioned, I'm the director of the newly established Cancer Center at Brown University, and I'm very privileged to speak with you today. I've been researching cancer and treating patients for about 25 years. Let me begin by telling you about our recent progress at the Cancer Center at Brown. But first, let's talk a little bit about cancer, which touches all of us in some way. So in the United States this year, according to the American Cancer Society, there'll be almost 1.9 million new cases of cancer and over 600,000 deaths. Next slide. And cancer is curable when detected early and when diagnosed at an early stage. But when detected late, when it has advanced and often metastasized, the 5-year survival is very poor for most of the common tumor types. Next slide. Research has had impact on the death rate from cancer, and it's estimated that almost 3 million lives have been saved over the last couple of decades due to progress in early detection, prevention, new treatments, as well as fewer people smoking. Next slide. But we're in the middle of the COVID pandemic, and this has reduced access to care, delayed routine care. Cancer is being diagnosed later, and there are delays in its treatment. And all of these things are impacting more on the underserved, the poor members of our community. And so we need to address this. Next slide. Our vision at the Cancer Center is to build world-class cancer programs that bring basic scientific discoveries, clinical and population research to reduce the burden of cancer in Rhode Island and beyond. Next slide. We have a large academic campus at Brown University that includes the Warren Alpert Medical School, the School of Public Health, several other schools. We have 2 health systems with Lifespan and Care New England, and a VA hospital. Next slide. There's a tremendous amount of research that goes on in our campus. We also deliver outstanding clinical care to patients at our hospitals. And we have incredible talent and commitment among our faculty to build the programs. Some of our areas of excellence include specific tumor types such as brain cancer or GI cancer or lung cancer. We have expertise in cancer biology in various aspects of cancer biology. We have expertise in risk factors for cancer. And we also have outstanding clinical research with experimental treatments that are being offered to patients. Next slide. Our community does have needs, and we need to learn more about how the environment and the genetic factors increase the risk of cancer within Rhode Island and within our region. And we also need to have an impact on underserved areas and the poor within our community to increase screening for cancer and early detection, and to bring life-saving treatments to all members of our community. Next slide. So as Dean Elias alluded to earlier, a lot has been happening over the last few years. with many incredible recruits on the clinical side, clinical leaders, national leaders in clinical care and clinical research. We have built research programs, as you would see at other NCI designated cancer centers. We've built translational groups that focus on specific diseases. We've become members of several national consortiums and cooperative groups that do translational and clinical research. We became members last year of the Association of American Cancer Institutes, which includes 102 of the leading cancer centers in the United States and Canada. We have been working on community outreach, integrating our research and clinical programs, and recruiting additional faculty to provide depth and leadership and mentoring within our various programs. Last year, we also convened an external advisory board of nationally renowned experts, including several cancer center directors, who heard what we had to say about the programs that have come together and all of the activities and clinical trials and community outreach. And they gave us feedback about our plans to pursue NCI designation. And so we were very appreciative for that input as we work toward that important goal. Next slide. Some of our research to discover new treatments involves having outstanding basic scientific programs so that we can understand what makes cancers grow, what makes them resist therapies, and how can we manipulate our immune system in order to have more impact of our various therapies and basically have people live longer with a better quality of life. But we want to do more than that. We would like to treat every patient individually based on what we uncover about their cancer, what makes it tick in terms of genetic factors, as well as the obstacles they may face in their lives with obtaining the care they need. Next slide. So this is just a summary of some of our research programs. We have a cancer biology program, we have a cancer therapeutics program, and a population science program. And some of the themes within each of these programs, including our terrific clinical trials program within cancer therapeutics, and our population research that is focused on risk factors and modifying them, and also within our cancer biology program, we have strengths in the areas of aging and inflammation, factors that contribute to cancer and resistance to therapeutics. And we also have a very strong DNA repair and environmental carcinogenesis program. Next slide. And what this all translates to is what we would want for our patients and indeed for our own families. And so at the center of all of this are the patients. And we want to help patients navigate the complicated healthcare system. We want to provide them the best multidisciplinary care with access to the latest clinical trials and support services. And we want to treat them in the most personalized way so that they can benefit from the treatments that they are receiving. So a little bit about some of the, next slide, a little bit about some of the work that we have been doing. And these are just to show you some lung cancer cells in the laboratory that are being treated with a cancer therapeutic known as TRAIL. And this is what happens to these cells that you can just see under the microscope over a 4-hour time period, and these cells are dead. And this is what we want to do. We want to kill cancer cells directly with drugs, or on the next slide, I show you an example of an immune cell coming up to touch a cancer cells, inject some cancer killing proteins, and that makes the cancer cells membranes leaky, so it turns red, and it just is dying before your eyes there. And this is what happens when the immune cells kill the cancer cells. And we are working to be able to do that with the therapeutics in order to improve the dismal outcomes we have now when cancer is diagnosed late. So next slide. So our research into drug discovery needs to translate into treatments for patients. And so we have been working to bring new chemical compounds into clinical trials. And on the next slide, we have discovered a new drug called TIC10 for trail-inducing compound number 10. Remember that movie with the cells being killed by trail? The compound is also known as ONC201. We discovered this drug in the lab in 2007, and it entered clinical trials by 2014. And remarkably, this drug has been having effects on very aggressive midline brain tumors that have a poor prognosis. And this is an example of a young girl who had paralysis of one of her cranial nerves so that she couldn't smile. And within a few months of being treated with this ONC201 drug, she regained her smile and improved in terms of her cranial nerve paralysis. Next slide. And there have been many people around the country who have shared their stories in the media about the benefit they have derived from taking these pills and that have improved their lives in many different ways so that they are living longer and able to do the things that make their lives meaningful. Next slide. We are working on other drugs, and so there's a drug called ONC212, which is a new drug on the way to the clinic for pancreatic cancer and other tumor types. And this is work that we are doing collaboratively with leading centers such as Harvard University, Cold Spring Harbor Labs, Fox Chase Cancer Center, and the Lifespan Health System. And this clinical translation is happening within the next couple of years to bring this new drug to patients. So I think I will stop here, and we will have questions at the end of the presentations.
Thank you, Dr. Alderi. As Dr. Alderi mentioned, we will return to questions after we hear from all of our panelists. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A function that you see at the bottom of your screens. Our next panelist is Dr. Rishi Lula. Dr. Lula is the Alan G. Hassenfeld Associate Professor of Pediatrics. He serves as the Chief of Pediatric Hematology and Oncology at Hasbro Children's Hospital, and he's an international expert in the care of children and young adults with brain and spinal cord tumors. Welcome, Dr. Lula.
Thank you so much, Sahar, and thank you, Dean Elias and Dr. Alderi, for that invitation to present to you all today. So you've heard a little bit about cancer and a little bit about the Cancer Center at Brown, but what I'd love to share with you on the next slide is really the importance that pediatric cancer, which is something that's near and dear to my heart, plays in the mission of our program. So at Brown, we have a large comprehensive cancer center that supports children who have developed and young adults who have developed cancer and blood disorders. And our goal really is to provide cutting edge patient-centered care for these patients. But more than providing the clinical care, we also think it's important, as you've heard from Dr. Aldiri, to scientifically contribute to the field that we work in and really train our next generation of providers. Next slide. You know, we want to focus just a couple minutes on the importance of childhood cancer. While fortunately it represents a very small percentage of the total number of cancer cases diagnosed in this country, it is still true that cancer in children unfortunately remains the single leading cause of disease-related mortality in children. So this is a really important problem. There are about 43 children every day diagnosed in the United States with cancer. And unfortunately, we lose 5 children around this country every day as a result of cancer. So urgent therapies and new strategies are needed. While we're busy trying to develop new strategies, we're also focusing on our cancer survivors and trying to make sure that we're able to provide them with a long longevity in life, minimizing the side effects associated with their treatment. At Brown, we're actively engaged in clinical research to help improve outcomes and minimize late effects for children who've developed any types of cancer. And I'm proud to say that we have over 40 active clinical trials for children and young adults with cancer. I'm particularly proud of the fact that as part of the entire growth and development of the Cancer Center, as you've heard, we've been busy working to bring early phase or phase 1 clinical trials to our patients right here at home in Rhode Island. We were able to last summer, right in the midst of the pandemic, open our very first phase 1 oncology trial in Brown's history. This not only was an opportunity to really push the field forward, but also a game changer for our families who in the past had to travel out of the state to be treated with these types of treatments. So really proud of the work that we've done. And there's ongoing work coming to develop additional trials. And, you know, for me, apart from moving the science forward, this also really fulfills a commitment that we have to our community to make sure that patients get the very best care that they need for their child's cancer right here at home in Rhode Island. Next slide. As much as clinical research is critical to what we do, basic and translational research is also paramount, because not only do we want to be testing trials in the clinic now, we want to be thinking about what's the next generation of agents, or how should we think about unique combinations. So on this slide, you'll see 2 of the team, the pediatric oncology team. In the front is Robin, one of our fellows, and Dr. Chang, Wendy Chang, one of my partners. And here they are working in the Aldiri lab, working diligently to identify novel strategies to treat very hard to treat tumors, using some of the compounds developed in the lab, combining them with additional chemotherapies. And on this slide, I'm just showing you some results from Robin's work that just was submitted for publication, and really looking at how do we think creatively about attacking the most deadliest brain tumors that we take care of in children. Next slide. You know, in one way, we talk about what's happening in the lab, but I implore you just to get you to know that the work that we're doing actually has impact, real life impact in the care of children and young adults every day around this country, but every day at in this state and in our programs. So I just wanted to share a story with you of kind of how this work has impact on patients. So on the top of the screen, you see an MRI image of a baby who was diagnosed in utero. So at 32 weeks gestation was diagnosed with a large brain tumor. The baby was delivered and we were able to stabilize him. And at around 4 weeks of life, just 36 weeks gestation, so premature by every measure, he underwent a really elegant surgery to remove a portion of this tumor. And sort of following on with a model that Dr. Aldiri presented, we don't want to just remove the tumor and give chemotherapy. We want to remove the tumor, identify exactly what drives this tumor. And we identified a novel strategy that we could use to sort of turn this tumor off. But what's really impressive is over a short period of time, as he was recovering from surgery, we were able to open a clinical trial to offer him a liquid preparation of a medication that was not previously available for children. All that within just a few weeks of his birth and this sort of really devastating diagnosis for the family. I'm so proud to say that 2.5 years later, we have a young boy who's thriving with no evidence of disease, and really is a testament to the work that we do every day here at the Cancer Center. but also how we're working together with other collaborators around the country and here at Brown to really push the field of pediatric oncology forward. Thanks so much for giving me an opportunity to share some of the work that I'm so proud of, and I'm going to turn it back to Sahar.
Thank you, Dr. Lula. Our final panelist is Dr. Sheldon Holder. Dr. Holder is an assistant professor of pathology and laboratory medicine. His area of expertise is in genitourinary cancer, and his research focuses on cancers of the urinary tract and the male reproductive tract. Welcome, Dr. Holder.
Thank you, Sahar, and thank you for that introduction, and thank you, Dr. Aldiri and Dean Elias, for allowing me to participate today in this discussion. As you heard, I am a medical oncologist and I treat genitourinary cancers. Mostly that's kidney cancer and bladder cancer and prostate cancer. And I'm showing you here a slide that shows the incidence rates, that is how frequently bladder cancer is diagnosed throughout the country. And what I want you to see is that there's actually a spectrum from states where the diagnosis rate is lower, such as in Texas, and then states where it's higher, such as here in Rhode Island. Now, I know it's hard to see from this bird's eye view where Rhode Island is and see it well, but we'll blow it up for you on the next slide. You can see that Rhode Island is very dark red. It's in the darkest red here. And if you take 100,000 people in Rhode Island, it's estimated that 25 of those will develop bladder cancer. So 25 out of 100,000, as opposed to a state like Texas, where it's about half that. And so as a physician who treats bladder cancer, that is of particular interest to me, why it would be higher here than in other states. But I showed this slide to make an additional point that developing a NCI designated cancer center here at Brown, it allows us to tailor the cancer therapy to the specific and unique needs of Rhode Islanders. Every state and every community doesn't have exactly the same needs. And so when you build a cancer center here in Rhode Island, we're able to tailor what we offer to the unique needs of Rhode Island. And that's going to be a benefit to Rhode Islanders throughout the state. And that's something I wanted to underline and underscore. We can go to the next slide. And I wanted to show also some of the work that we're doing here in my lab. So not only am I a physician seeing patients, but I also am a scientist and I run a lab in the cancer center looking for new ways to treat therapy, new ways to treat patients. And here I'm showing you some kidney cancer cells that we are growing in culture. The picture on the left, the furthest on the left, are cells that are not treated. The ones on the right are cells that are being treated, and you can see some of them are dying. But even more dramatically is the bar graph. So this is, I'm showing you growth after 3 days. And the black bar, the really tall one, are cancer cells, kidney cancer cells that are growing in culture after 3 days. And you can see there's lots of growth. That bar is very tall. There's a short orange bar all the way on the right. And then to the right of that, there's actually a very short light green bar. The arrow is pointing to it because it's so small that you can barely see it. These are cells that were treated with a new kidney cancer combination that we identified in the lab that works very well at killing cancer cells in the lab, as you can see by comparing it to that tall black bar. And so this drug combination works extremely well in cells and culture. And if you go to the next slide, what we did then is we used that same combination on actual tumors that are growing. And the same is shown here. The black lines show tumor that is untreated. And you can see over a period of 35 days, those tumors are growing. But the tumors that were treated with this drug combination are shrinking over 35 days. That's the green lines that are going down all the way on the right. And so all of this work was done in the lab showing that this drug combination is active. And the other thing I wanted to highlight, so you may have heard that I'm a recent hire here at Brown. I've only been here about 6 weeks actually. And I'm very excited to be here. And I want to underline and underscore the excitement that is within the Cancer Center as a whole. In the short time that I've been here, we actually already have gotten some of the approvals that are required to open this clinical trial with this new drug combination here at Brown, at the Cancer Center at Brown and at Lifespan. And this is a process that typically takes several months. And so, the excitement that we have here, the commitment to deepening and broadening the impact of the Cancer Center here at Brown for the entire state is something that's already happening. And it's just going to get better in additional tumor types. And we can illustrate that by the short turnaround time to getting these trials just like this open. And so I'm happy to be here. I'm glad to be a part of it. And we're looking forward to exciting things that are going to happen.
Thank you to all of our panelists for their insight into ongoing developments at the Cancer Center and how Brown is not just providing, but also shaping and advancing cancer care in Rhode Island and nationally. Now we will move on to the Q&A portion of the webinar. Thank you for your participation and question submissions. We will be taking questions from those that have been submitted prior and during the panel. If we're unable to get to your question, we will follow up after the event. Our first question of the night is for Dr. Aldieri and Dr. Lula. Can you please elaborate on how the Cancer Center has grown during your tenure and enhanced your clinical and research programs?
Yeah,
Well,
please.
the Cancer Center has come together over the last couple of years to have it's really brought people together. People were all over the campus doing different types of research, and now with the establishment of specific groups and programs, there are regular meetings that bring people together. We are starting new clinical trials. Our clinical trials have been enrolling at Lifespan about 800 patients a year, at Care New England about 400 patients a year. Our early phase clinical trials programs for adults has been enrolling close to 200 patients a year, which is really incredible as far as the number of trials that are available. And these are really the types of trials that just bring hope to people. These early phase trials that are testing new treatments. We have been very busy recruiting. So there's been growth as far as bringing new colleagues to the campus. And that's been great to watch. I think we have a center here that is attractive to our colleagues around the country, whether they are clinicians or scientists. It's a great environment to collaborate, and it's very collegial. I've only been here about 2.5 years. I'm very happy I'm here. I am glad to be part of the effort here to build this Cancer Center, and we all are working together as a team really to make it one of the best in the country. And I really believe that's possible here, where it may be more challenging in other places. I really think we have everything we need here, but we do need to grow, and we need to keep growing over the next few years and doing some of those things that are relevant to and that are done really all around the country at cancer centers, such as the community outreach. We really need to get into our region and our state and understand the burden of cancer within the different communities. as well as the obstacles to getting access to care or being able to afford the care that is available to the rest of the population. And this is what cancer centers do. They study these problems and they find solutions. And we want to find solutions so that we can improve the quality of life for members of our community, and certainly those who are afflicted with cancer.
I'll only add to what Wafiq said and just comment that, you know, by every metric by which we look at growth, and you asked about, Sahar, about growth at the Cancer Center, you know, speaking for my team, it's been unbelievable. Our team has doubled in size over the past 3 years. No doubt, we've doubled. We've increased the number of grant applications that have gone out, publications that have gone out, increased the amount of collaboration that we're doing across campus, increased the number of clinical trials that we're offering, and increase the number of patients that we're serving. So really, by any metric, the program has grown, and it's been absolutely wonderful to be part of this, what I consider sort of this exponential growth phase of the Brown Cancer Center.
The next question is for Dr. Holder. You mentioned that you recently joined the faculty at Brown. Can you tell us what attracted you to the Cancer Center at Brown, and what's the most exciting about being part of this community?
Thank you, Sahar. Yes, so I did recently join the faculty here. You know, I would say that what impressed me the most was when I started talking to Dr. Aldiri and Dean Elias and several other people who were already here when I was considering the move. And it was really evident to me that there is really a commitment and an excitement and a swell of activity to develop this cancer center into, as Dr. Aldiri said, into a NCI designated cancer center that's going to have deeper and wider impact. I'm from an island born and raised in Bermuda, and we have a saying that I think you use here in the United States too. We say, a rising tide lifts all boats. And we have a rising tide here at the Cancer Center. And, by coming and being a part of that, all boats are going to rise. So I'm happy here to be a part of that, and just excited to be a part and to see what's going to happen, not just on the campus, but in Rhode Island as a whole state, as we're able to bring better therapies to more people.
Thank you, Dr. Holder. I think teamwork has been mentioned by all of our panelists, so I want to direct the next question first to Dr. Lula and then the rest of the panelists. What collaborations are your groups engaging with, and how do you think Brown has enabled those?
Thanks, Sahar, for the question, and I couldn't agree with you more. You hear what Sheldon said about a rising tide. The same is true about the importance of a team, and I think the community that we've built here is really one that values teamwork, values team science. And so there are a couple of really practical examples that I think we should talk about. One thing is that we're positioned in a unique way. We're able to take care of both pediatric and adult patients. And it turns out that there's not a real great divide between pediatric and adult patients. In fact, many times adult patients are affected by pediatric diseases, and every so often pediatric patients are affected by adult diseases. So what does this do naturally? It gives us first the opportunity to work together on a clinical perspective, so calling up a colleague on the adult medicine side to ask a question. But it also provides us a rich ground by which we can actually ask some research questions. So I'm proud to say that the very first pediatric-led clinical trial that's going to be coming out of Brown, so developed and led here, is actually a trial that enrolls adolescents and young adults, ages 12 to 40, really focusing on a very special group of patients that only a program like ours could treat, because we actually care for them under the umbrella of a single cancer center. And that's not true across many other places in the country. And so I think that's just one really tangible example of very meaningful collaborations just within the School of Medicine. And that's not even scratching the surface of what we're able to do with collaborators outside of the School of Medicine.
Thank you, Dr. Lula. This next question is directed for Dr. Aldieri. How can we give Rhode Islanders the best chance at beating cancer and not having to leave the state for treatment?
So I think the way to do that is to do exactly what we're doing by building a world-class cancer center that brings the latest discoveries for the benefit of patients. Patients are already getting great medical care, but within the cancer center, having access to those sought after clinical trials that bring new treatments is really what brings people to major cancer centers. We have such trials here, but we want to build more and make new discoveries within our research programs that will allow us to have those very unique ways of treating patients here. Patients already get great care, and many of our patients do travel to other places and come right back and get their care here, because when they go to other places, they hear that they're not going to do anything different for them at other centers. And so we want to build upon that and have additional unique things that we're doing to help patients. It's convenient for patients to be receiving care close to home, near their loved ones, and to know that the care that they're getting here is second to none. That's what we all would want for ourselves and for our families. And I think as we continue to build our cancer center, it's going to be very well known that this is in fact what is happening here, and that you don't really need to travel. Although I got to tell you, I always tell my patients, please go get a second opinion. It's important. If it helps you sleep better at night, by all means, just go ahead and do that. And, we'll go from there.
Thank you, Dr. Aldieri. Another theme of the night has been translational research, and we've heard that phrase several times. Dr. Holder, can you please explain what translational research is, why it's important, and how the Cancer Center helps you conduct that type of research?
Absolutely, sure. So, yeah, you have heard that word a lot, translational research. And so what that really means is that when we talk about research, there's really a spectrum on which people do research. So there are people who do what we call basic science research. It's done in a lab, in test tubes, maybe not even in cells. And it's really trying to find fundamental new things in ways to treat cancer. But a lot of that work is years away from being used in a person to treat their cancer better. And then on the other extreme are people who are doing clinical trials, people who are giving new medications in a safe and effective way to treat patients who already have cancer. And translational medicine is really the glue that holds those two extremes together. So you need people who are going to take these new discoveries that are found in the lab and figure out ways to use those in people. And that's absolutely necessary, although it's not talked about all the time. You have to have that transition. And what the Cancer Center does is it brings all of the people along that spectrum together. So you have in one place, talking to each other on a regular basis, people who are on one extreme of the spectrum, people on the other extreme of the spectrum, and people who are in the middle to connect those two worlds. And that's the best way to get new therapies out of the lab and into a patient. There's a lot of talk about getting vaccines into arms, right? It's that same concept. It doesn't help unless it actually gets into a patient. And that's really what we want to do. We want to foster that transition along the spectrum, and having the Cancer Center to put all those people in one place and talk to each other and figure out how to do that best is the most efficient way to make that happen.
Thank you, Dr. Holder. The next question is for all of our panelists, starting with Dr. Lula. What do you think are the immediate needs of the Cancer Center, and what do you need to make Brown the best possible research community?
Thanks, Sahar. I think, just like any growing entity, we need resources, right? We need the resources to find space to recruit new faculty members. We need to find resources to support new and innovative projects. And as we sort of move towards on our path towards Cancer Center designation, these are going to be really critical things to bring to the program. In terms of what I need, I feel so lucky to be in this community and have the opportunity to work with great panelists on the call today, but also great colleagues who are not represented on the call today. And so I think what I need is, additional staff and time and support to foster some of these collaborations that are just waiting in the wings to sort of be acted on. And I think as we grow, we're going to identify additional people to really take these really great seeds of ideas and turn them into really fantastic developments.
Dr. Aldiri and Dr. Holder, do you have anything to add to that?
Oh, yes. We do need many things. I mean, I would add that in order to do that translational research and in order to make basic scientific discoveries, we need to attract leaders in the field, and that costs money. Younger colleagues from around the country and show them that this is a great environment where they can build their careers. One of our guiding principles as we build excellence within our programs is to bring in the latest technologies into our research environment, to bring those technologies, make them available for our clinicians and scientists so they can do their research at the highest standards. So there's been so much progress in molecular techniques and our ability to profile and understand cancer at the molecular level. And we need to be doing that. And cancer, I think everybody appreciates, is complex. If we want to understand it, we have to study it, we have to model it, and then we have to challenge ourselves and think about how can we use that knowledge to develop better ways of detecting it early and treating it. And all of these things are cost a lot of money. When we talk about technologies, we're talking about core facilities that have equipment and staff and personnel. And then I think one of the areas of need that I would like to mention, and which is what cancer centers do very well, is they bring people together. So I'll give you by example. If we want to study bladder cancer and learn about what is going on in the state of Rhode Island, one of the ways is to do population research. For example, we could study a large cohort of individuals in our community, say 100,000 or 200,000 people, that some of whom will develop cancer over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And by doing that, by learning about them and their environment, what they live near, their geography, what they might be exposed to, by collecting clinical samples, blood samples, or when they go see their doctor, other types of samples, urine samples, and things like that, and analyzing them in the laboratory. Some people will develop cancer, others won't. And this gives us a way to understand what is different, what causes this cancer, what environmental factors, what genetic factors contribute to this. It's complex, but you'll see if we do this, those 100,000 or 200,000 people will develop other kinds of cancer as well. And we will have collected all of those biological materials and interrogated them at the molecular level so that we can understand, where does this high incidence of cancer come from here in Rhode Island? And then what can we do about it? We certainly have incredible people here, and we have many problems. This was just one example. There are many others. I mentioned earlier, we've had some success in the area of drug discovery. We'd like to do more of that as we study different biochemical pathways within the cells and identify new targets for treatment. We have the technology to find new drugs and bring them to clinical trials. So part of the need is to bring people together and provide resources so that they could work together across disciplines and then come up with the new discoveries and the breakthroughs and then move that toward the clinic. And I think we can do this. I think we can do it well. We just need the resources. And in some cases, we would need to recruit leaders in the field to help us with some of the work we're doing. Delighted to have Dr. Holder here and Dr. Lula, who came in the last few years. We want to do more of that so we can build critical mass. We also have an educational mission. We need to educate. We need to educate the community about what cancer is, what we do here for patients, and we need to train the next generation of colleagues like yourself, Sahar, who will be doing that research and that translation into the future. And so this is what cancer centers do, and we want to be doing that here. We think we can be successful here. We need your help to be able to do this, and we appreciate your help.
Thank you, Dr. El-Diri. I think that ends our time for the Q&A portion. You were able to cover a wide range of topics and learn a lot more about the Cancer Center and its future directions. And I would like to turn it back to Dr. El-Diri for brief closing remarks.
Thank you, Sahar, and thanks everyone for your comments and questions. We're building a world-class cancer center for Rhode Island. By learning more about cancer in Rhode Island, we learn more about cancer everywhere. We're a leading academic center, and the types of cancers we see here affect people all over the world. So over the next few years, as we pursue NCI designation and reach those high standards and make those discoveries and breakthrough, our cancer center will bring hope for cancer victims in Rhode Island, and hope that we can also detect cancer early and prevent it so that we reduce the burden of cancer in our community. We think that what we will do will have impact on the world beyond our region as we make those discoveries. So thank you for your attention this evening, and I'll turn it back to Sahar.
Thank you, Dr. El-Diri. That concludes the webinar. Thank you so much to Dean Elias and our panelists for your perspectives and insights, and the audience for your thoughtful questions. Have a great rest of the evening.